Alright, welcome to my progressions, and this is simply how I teach stuff in my classes. It's not perfect by any means, but it is very effective for what I've done. In my progressions, we always give two progressions. We're going to give one for a beginner group of people, somebody who's like an on-ramp class, and then one for a more experienced class, like how I would get people moving through it. So we're going to start with the basics. Let's go for the squat, the air squat. We'll go first with the beginner, and then we'll go into the more advanced one. Beginner one, when I teach an air squat, first thing I do is talk about stance. So I give people stance about a shoulder width. Talk about toes then, toes being slightly turned out rather than keeping toes straight. If people are more proficient, I can bring them in or move them out depending on who they are. But I start with the toes slightly turned out. Now from here, the first thing I want people focusing on is keeping their weight in their heels. So I'll say when I go down, when I say down, go down, when I say up, come up, all we're focusing on is weight in the heels. So I'll get stance and then focus on weight in the heels. So people will be going down, coming back up, just thinking about keeping their weight in their heels. Get a couple reps there. Once everyone's understanding weight in the heels, then I'll layer on top of that and say, okay, now we're going to talk about the knees. And the knees, they're made to do this one, not so much side to side. So we'll say knees driven out. Now it's important we layer upon, say, hey, make sure we still keep our weight in our heels, but we also want the knees driving out. So we say heels, knees, stand back up, heels, knees, stand back up. Make sure people are understanding what the knee does. Then I layer on top of that. In a squat, we always want to go full range of motion. And full range of motion is going to be going down till your hip crease is below your knee, and then standing all the way back up. Now, I once again stress really, really hard. We have to make sure the weight stays in the heels. We have to make sure our knees stay driven out. But then we're going to go all the way down to the very bottom position where hip crease is below the knee, and we'll hang out down there till everyone's down there. So we get them squatting all the way down, thinking weight in the heels, knees driven out, and getting full range of motion. Stand back up, do a couple, making sure you're cueing back onto the things that you've taught. Lastly, what we'll go over is the midline stability, or keeping the back nice and tight. And the reason I personally go over this last when I'm teaching new people is I feel like if I teach it to people first, and I stress how important it is because it's vastly important, what will happen is they'll get so wrapped up in keeping their back tight that they forget to do everything else well. Or they're so focused on that, they just don't focus on doing everything else well. So what I'll do is I'll say keep everything else, weight in the heels, knees driven out, and full range of motion, but as we go down, we're going to pull our hands over our head. What that's going to do is it's going to cause the chest to lift up and the back to stay engaged. So we'll get them in their position as they go down. They're keeping their knees out, lifting their chest up, and I'll hold them down there trying to fight for a better position. And I'll hammer home basically, hey, do you feel how much more engaged you are there? Make sure you're staying braced through the belly, and then continue to cue through that. And that's how I run it over with beginners. Now we're going to talk about my progression for if I'm teaching it in a class, and I've got a class of people in front of me who've already gone through an on-ramp. The first thing I'll do is I'll go over the stance. Hey, everybody get out to your squatting stance. Make adjustments as I see necessary. Okay, ready, and squat. That's it. If people come into your classes, they should have been exposed to the squat. So I'll just tell people to squat, and then I'll look back to those points of performance. Same thing, knees driven out, weight in the heels, full range of motion, and then keeping that back flat. But I won't go over the progression because everyone in class should know the friggin' progression. That is my progression for teaching the squat. Enjoy it, use it. If you don't like it, don't use it, but that's just how I find things to be effective.